darkest heart of a city abandoned by hope, Elias, a homeless man, existed in a realm of terror far beyond the ordinary. His every waking moment was haunted by a visceral, horrifying presence, death itself, a relentless predator that stalked him through the twisted alleys and desolate avenues. This was no figment of imagination. The air around Elias was perpetually cold, the very atmosphere tainted with the stench of decay. Shadows seemed to writhe and contort in his presence, forming grotesque shapes that whispered of unspeakable horrors. Even the light seemed to flee from him, casting him in a perpetual gloom. Among the forgotten and the damned, Elias was a figure of dread, the man whom death itself seemed to court. It was whispered that wherever he passed, time warped and reality thinned, allowing the ghastly entities of a darker world to seep through. But Elias, haunted and haggard, was a soul of defiance. He refused to yield to the nightmarish specter that haunted his steps. Yet, his resistance seemed to only amuse the dark force that claimed him, making his life an endless, torturous game. The climax of his terror came on a night when the moon was a sickly, jaundiced eye in the sky. The air was thick with a palpable sense of impending doom. Elias felt the presence of death not just behind him, but all around, enveloping him in a suffocating embrace. Phantasmal figures, their faces twisted in eternal agony, emerged from the shadows, their wails a symphony of despair. In a frenzy of fear, Elias ran. He dashed through the city like a man possessed, every step a dance with death. The buildings around him seemed to come alive, their structures morphing into leering faces, windows turning into gaping maws, ready to swallow him whole. As he raced through the nightmarish city, the boundary between life and death began to blur. The air was thick with the screams of lost souls, and the ground beneath his feet pulsed with a malevolent life of its own. In the climax of his terror, Elias stumbled into a clearing, an island of calm amidst the chaos. And there, in that moment of eerie tranquility, he faced the ultimate horror, a mirror reflecting not his image, but a visage of death itself, a skeletal entity with hollow eyes that seemed to peer into his very soul. In this confrontation, Elias realized a terrifying truth. The shelter he sought could not be found in the physical world. It lay within, in accepting the inescapable embrace of the entity that pursued him. In his final act of defiance, he embraced the horror, finding a strange peace in the acceptance of his fate. As dawn broke, the city returned to its usual state of decay, but Elias was nowhere to be found. He had become one with the shadow that haunted him. His story, a chilling legend, whispered in the hushed tones of fear. In the heart of the city that death claimed, Elias found his shelter in the most horrifying way imaginable, by becoming one with the darkness that pursued him.